The collapse of Keir Starmer, how one sentence shook Britain. It began quietly, as political earthquakes often do, not with a public scandal, not with a policy failure, but with a whisper behind the walls of Windsor Castle. What followed was the fastest and most devastating political collapse modern Britain had ever witnessed. A single sentence, uttered in anger, leaked into the world beyond Downing Street and turned a Prime Minister's career to dust. It was not just a fall from grace. It was a reminder that in a nation built on tradition, respect for the crown remains a line no leader dares to cross. Behind the polished marble of Windsor Castle, King Charles III had held a discreet meeting with Nigel Farage and key members of Reform UK. There were no cameras, no press briefings, no grand ceremonial entrances, just a quiet, private conversation about Britain's direction. For the King, the discussion reflected his growing concern about national unity and the public's loss of trust in government. But for Keir Starmer, the man occupying number 10, that meeting was nothing short of an act of betrayal. When the news of the royal conversation leaked, Westminster went into meltdown. For months, Starmer had faced murmurs about indecision and a lack of leadership. Now, the image of the monarch conferring privately with his fiercest rival felt like a dagger to the heart of his authority. The Prime Minister saw in that meeting not constitutional propriety, but a direct challenge. A king questioning his legitimacy. What came next would change British politics forever. Inside number 10, the atmosphere was tense. Ministers shuffled into the cabinet room, their faces strained with unease. Starmer was already pacing when they arrived, red-faced, angry, visibly seething. He spoke of disloyalty, of conspiracies, of a palace that didn't understand its place. Then, in a moment of unchecked fury, he said the words that would destroy him. The monarchy is nothing but elderly men in elaborate costumes pretending to matter. For a moment, the room went silent. The clinking of pens stopped. No one dared move. It was a sentence so heavy, so blasphemous to British tradition, that even his closest allies looked away. Some ministers exchanged glances that said everything. This was the end. Within hours, the comment was out. Someone, perhaps out of conscience or ambition, had leaked the words to the press. By nightfall, every newsroom in Britain had the quote. By morning, the country woke to a storm of outrage. Starmer mocks the crown. Prime Minister insults the king. Libor turns on tradition. Every front page carried his words. And social media exploded with fury. Ordinary citizens, not politicians, not journalists, but everyday Britons, took to their phones to express disbelief. One video filmed by a retired teacher from Liverpool captured the national mood perfectly. "I voted Labour all my life," she said through tears. But insulting our king, that's not leadership. That's destruction. Within 24 hours, her clip had millions of views. The nation was united, not by party, but by anger. Polling numbers confirmed what the public outrage already made clear. Within 48 hours, Labour's approval rating collapsed. A YouGov survey showed that nearly 3/4 of voters believed Starmer had gone too far. Even more devastatingly, half of Labour's own supporters said they no longer trusted him to lead. Across the country, from Manchester to Cardiff, from Glasgow to London, party offices were flooded with resignations and complaints. The Labour heartlands, the communities that had kept the party alive for generations, felt betrayed. And through it all, King Charles said nothing. The silence from Buckingham Palace was deafening. As Starmer stumbled through apology after apology, the monarch carried on calmly, opening hospitals, visiting charities, attending local ceremonies. His composure spoke louder than any public statement could. While the Prime Minister fumbled for words, the King's quiet dignity became the moral centre of the nation. One BBC analyst described it best. One man looks like a statesman, the other looks like a leader unravelling. As the outrage deepened, another figure emerged from the shadows, Nigel Farage. For decades, he had been dismissed as the voice of fringe populism, loud, divisive, and easy to ignore. But this time, he didn't need to shout. The public came to him. Standing before a sea of Union Jacks, Farage delivered the speech that would change his career forever. When others insult our king, he declared, we honour him. When others mock our history, we defend it. This isn't about politics anymore. It's about who we are as a nation. His words struck a chord. Within days, Reform UK's membership quadrupled. Donations flooded in. Videos of the speech went viral, spreading from working-class towns to upper-middle-class suburbs. For the first time, Farage's movement looked like more than a protest. It looked like a revolution. In some polls, Reform UK even overtook Labour. The impossible was happening. Inside Labour headquarters, chaos reigned. Ministers resigned one after another. Rachel Reeves, the shadow chancellor, stepped down, followed by Wes Streeting and Angela Rayner. The party's communication team went silent. The press office stopped answering calls. Protests broke out across London and Birmingham, crowds waving flags and chanting, "Respect the Crown. Remove Starmer." Britain was watching its government crumble in real time. And then came the final blow. Late one evening, the royal household broke its silence. Without warning, Buckingham Palace released a 31-word statement. His Majesty remains steadfast in his commitment to serve all citizens of the United Kingdom with enduring respect for our nation's institutions. No names. No accusations, just calm, regal clarity. But every Briton knew exactly what it meant. It was a rebuke dressed as restraint, a reminder that the monarchy stood above the squabbling of politics. Constitutional scholars called it the most elegant act of power in modern royal history. One analyst put it bluntly, Charles has checkmated Starmer without moving a single piece. By sunrise, the palace statement had eclipsed every other story. Crowds gathered outside Buckingham Palace singing, "God Save the King." The national mood had turned completely. The monarchy, often seen as ceremonial, now appeared more powerful than ever, not through action, but through silence. Inside number 10, Keir Starmer sat alone in his office, staring at the palace statement on his screen. Just 10 days earlier, he had been the most powerful man in Britain. Now, he was a leader without authority. A symbol of arrogance punished by his own words. The irony was bitter. A man who prided himself on control had lost everything because he couldn't control himself. By noon, senior ministers arrived at Downing Street with grim faces. They begged him to resign, to save the party from total destruction. But Starmer refused. "I won't be forced out by a crown," he said quietly. "I was elected by party members, not by royal decree." It was defiance, but also delusion, because he still didn't understand the truth that Britain's people had already decided is, respect for the crown isn't optional. It's the foundation of the nation itself. In less than 2 weeks, Labour had disintegrated. The Conservatives, previously weakened and divided, were suddenly revitalised. Donations poured in, polls surged, and the party sensed opportunity. But the real story was Reform UK. Nigel Farage, once seen as a political outsider, was now on track to become leader of the opposition. British politics had been rewritten, not through war, not through crisis, but through a single reckless sentence. It was a masterclass in the unspoken rules of power. King Charles had proven that authority doesn't always shout. Sometimes, the most commanding voice is the one that chooses silence. And in that silence, the entire country heard a message louder than any speech. Some traditions cannot be mocked. Some institutions must be respected. And those who forget that lesson, no matter how powerful they are, will be reminded by history itself.